Hello, Alex. How are you doing, Mr. Machacek? Is that the right pronunciation?
Yeah, very good, Mr. Reuter. So let's get one thing straight here. Usually we would talk German, which would be so much more funny, of course, informative and everything, but it will get lost in translation. So I'm apologizing for that right away.
Do you like the humor that you can, let's say, do in English? Do you like it? Do you enjoy humor in the English language?
Sometimes I actually translate Austrian expressions literally into English. And that I enjoy even more, I have to say. So for instance, well, I save that. I
save it for later.
I save it for later. If this conversation kind of tanks, then then I can throw that in.
I'm sure it won't tank. I'm
well, you never sure. Know. You never know.
Alex, so really this format, just for you to know, is open. I have no agenda or anything. Like, I was thinking before this that it would be interesting to maybe talk about your experience going to the US and living there as a European. So it's not so much like these conversations, even though you're a musician, I'm a musician, we know each other because of music, right? But it doesn't have to be about music, but it can be about music. And so you were born in Austria, is that correct?
It's correct. Born in Austria, grew up there, went to school, blah, blah, blah. And at a certain point, I just felt I wanted to see more of the world, or it was just time for a change. And my wife was actually born in the US. So therefore, I had no issues with papers or anything.
I see.
So I could get the green card easily. And we debated where to go. So it had to be one of the big music cities. I mean, nowadays everything changed, but back in the day, there were 3 big music cities: New York, Nashville, and LA. So New York didn't make it for us because it's cold in the winter, and coming from Vienna, that wouldn't be such a huge, like, from climate upgrade. Then Nashville is actually pretty small, and back then it had still that country vibe, even though country also changes constantly, and I heard some country that's just pop music. Anyway, it's in the south, so I said I've been to LA before, so let's just give it a shot. And before we actually moved here, we checked it out for 2 weeks. That was in February. It was super warm and sunny, and trust me, not seeing the sun in Austria for I don't know, probably 6 months of the year or more, which is the reason why Sigmund Freud had so many customers, because everyone is depressed. It's like perfect there. That would left a big impact, and so I thought, okay, let's try out LA. And so obviously we saved up money, and
hey, let's go back a little bit. So your wife was born in the US, and you met her in Vienna.
In Austria, yeah.
In Austria, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And when was it that you had the idea that you wanted to go to the US? How old were you?
Around in my 30s, in the early 30s. So I came here when I was 32.
Okay.
So we toyed around with the idea, and then we did it, and thought, okay, let's just give it a try and see how it goes. And that's what we did, and we're still here. They couldn't get rid of us.
And where in the US was your wife born?
She was born in New York.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, so it was an upgrade for both of you then, going to California, right?
Yeah. I have to. I mean, all in all, I can't complain. There's many people who hate LA, which is fine with me, because and don't come. There's this kind of polarizing view of, I know you have to go to New York, or you have to go, some people from San Francisco hate LA or whatever. I think you can find beautiful spots there almost anywhere. And so, I mean, whatever. Yeah, there's lots of traffic. Yes, it's kind of, the city by itself it's not a city, it's like many cities. I think it's over 50 cities or whatever. I didn't count them. There is no center in like in European cities, you have downtown, and this is really the center. And here you have all those little cities that are just basically that grew together. But once you get over that, and once you get over the fact that you need a car for pretty much everything, then it's just a really great city.
Yeah.
All in all.
Yeah. So
and is there a perfect city? That's the next question. Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I haven't seen that yet. Yeah. There's always, I think once you experience something new, you can't unsee that. So of course, once you arrive in the US, you go, oh wow, tap water quality is really low compared to Vienna, Austria, where we've got like really great tap water. But then I could also go back to Austria and find some flaws there, where I go, well, that's a little bit better here. Yeah, so you just can't unsee it, and that's it. You just have to stay flexible. You're in Berlin, right?
I'm in Berlin now. Yeah, I've lived here for 7 years now, and I have to say I'm pretty happy here. Like, you know, I lived in several places, and I was on the road so much that at some point I even lost contact with my home country. Right? It's not so much about the country; it's more about the language for me. You know, so it was, for me, it was important to be in a place where I can just open my mouth and nobody cares, or nobody thinks I'm from somewhere else. You know, because I actually experienced that in Austria, in Tyrol, which was pretty hard.
Of course.
Like, you know, it was impossible to be incognito, let's say, right? It's really impossible, and that's pretty tough.
I hear you.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Well,
right?
The Tyroleans are kind of tortured with the German tourists there.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
There's a great. Did you see that, the Alpensaga?
Yeah, for sure. I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then you know. Karl-Heinz auch, Jochen, Uwe, Dieter, komm mal da. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yes. But like going to the US for European, it's sort of like for some people it would be a dream come true, right? But where I think a lot of people don't really know what that means. And you know, the interesting thing for me was that I was seriously thinking about moving to the US, and that was right before I got the call to join the band with Pat and Tony Stickman, right? And so then once I was in the band, I was in the US so much anyway that I didn't need to move there.
Yeah,
it's really funny, you know. Yeah. So your musical career in Austria, how far did you get? Could you, like, how would you? I'm looking back and just comparing with where you are now.
So I think it's always kind of a little bit difficult. The city where you grow up musically, they also know you when you were a youngster and didn't know anything. So all your environment has that still in the back of their head. Oh, that's the youngster who really fucked up this and that tune on that session or whatever. So I once met Steve Swallow, and he said he had one rule: never play in your hometown. But all in all, I have to say Vienna is a beautiful city. There's lots of musical activity. You can study music, and it's one of those bad socialist states. I'm saying this for my American friends, the bad socialist states where you don't even have to pay tuition. Just imagine that. Like for the public conservatory. So you can study music, and there were lots of places to play. That was great because that's all you need. So of course, I don't know if you need a school, I think that's debatable, or yeah, that's a personal decision. My mother said, well, because I didn't finish my gymnasium, which is like high school. I didn't do 12 years. I only did 10 years because I wanted to become a musician. But the deal with my mom was you can only get out of school if you study. So, and that you could do without the matura. I don't want to compare it to a high school diploma because it's a little bit more.
No.
So I went to the conservatory. But okay, so you meet people there, and then with a lively environment, you could also play a lot. And that's something that I see is much more difficult for the youngsters, for instance, in LA, because there are not that many places. I mean, there are some places, but compared to what I experienced, it's tougher. But I think growing up, you need that. You need to, I don't know, have opportunities to try out things, have opportunities to fail without being stigmatized for your entire life or whatever. So that was great. And then after a while, I had a good and pretty cushy life. I had a little teaching job here. I mean, in Austria, I played with good people, always good, but it didn't get anywhere. That was. It might have changed now. I'm not so sure. At least my young friends, they are spreading out much more or venturing out much more. But back then, for instance, I never played in Italy or France because when you're in Austria, you play a little bit in Germany, a little bit in Switzerland, a little bit of Hungary maybe. And if you're lucky and find something in Czechoslovakia, it was called the Czech Republic, but that was it. That was it. So that was almost like invisible borders.
Yes.
For that. And the other way around. So, for instance, there were not too many Italians playing in Austria, and I'm not talking about the street musicians next to St. Stephen's. Maybe there were some, but certain countries didn't have like a huge exchange. And as you know, it's really close. There is, it's not a geographical hindrance. It's more like a cultural thing. So after a while, I thought, well, I don't know. There must be another way. And for instance, all my classical musical friends, they played all over the world because Vienna, classical music, that's the original. But jazz and Vienna, I'm saying jazz in a very, far sense or broad sense. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe there were a couple of people who made it a little bit more. So
it's interesting. When I was in Tirol, there was the conservatory, obviously, which also had jazz classes, as far as I know, and I think I do. But Vienna was never really on the radar for me when it came to jazz, interestingly enough. There was like a lot of, it was more about, obviously, the classical world, but then more in the art world, like performance art, and, like there are a lot of money is kind of like poured into the arts, into a certain layer of the arts, let's say, right, in Austria. But jazz wasn't really very prominent for me. To me, when I was in Vienna, visiting Vienna, it felt like there's very little. Like, so
you have to know.
You have to know. Okay.
Yeah. There are great musicians in Austria, and the world might never know about them. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, but I know about the musicians, the great musicians, but there is very little to be seen of a scene of like a lively scene of jazz players. At least outside of Vienna, I guess. Like it was very difficult to find something like that. Treibhaus in Innsbruck, for example, you have
in Vienna concerts. You've got Porgy and Bess, for instance. You've got Jazzland. You've got a couple of clubs. Then you've got all the Gürtelbögen clubs where many people play. and I don't even know all the clubs anymore because
Yeah.
I don't live there. So
Yeah.
but there's actually plenty of opportunity. I mean, maybe less than it used to be,
Mhm,
but there's
mhm.
still plenty of opportunity for people to play live, which is great.
Yes. Yeah. And so you said you had a teaching job. Was that kind of like a private thing, a private school or conservatory, or?
No, it was a public music school. It was actually the public music school that I attended when I was a kid for classical guitar, which I really sucked at. And they opened a chair for electric guitar, and they had an audition. So I went there, and I got that job, and I did it for a couple of years, until I moved to the US. Yeah, they're really big in about education, so which I find great. It was, I mean, it's good to give people the opportunity to learn an instrument. I still find that a good activity.
Is there, would you say that there's a particular style of musical education in Austria?
Well, the music schools mostly educate you to become a classical musician. And now they have here and there, they have some jazz or popular music, they call it then, teachers here and there, not in every music school as far as I know. So it's opening up a little bit, but the traditional way would be you learn like the classical way of each instrument. And then at the conservatories, I think in Austria, every conservatory or university has to have a motto. So for instance, Linz is more kind of avant-gardistic or more open, more free, whereas Graz and Vienna are very straight ahead. I don't know what Innsbruck is standing for, so who knows. But I once heard that they have to have a motto. So I thought it's interesting that the university in Vienna has straight ahead as the motto, because Graz already had that, you know.
Yeah, maybe they can all have the same motto.
Yeah, very original. Maybe. To me, yeah, I think focusing too much on a certain musical style might not be the best thing, because once you're out of the school, you're confronted with reality, and maybe everything is a little bit different in the real world. But anyway, let's not get into that, because
no.
And this would be my super long rant about how those conservatories are actually kind of a little bit, they've got some of them got the blinders on pretty well.
Yeah.
And that I don't find that productive.
Yeah. I mean, for you, just saying this from my perspective, you don't have to agree, but you have kind of like developed your own thing. And sometimes I was wondering what your influences are actually, because your style seems quite like, if you want me to describe, I think
Please, go ahead.
it's sort of like I would call you a jazz guitarist, actually, right? I would use that term. But then the way you play, for me, comes from a very deeply trained, rehearsed place. Like, when I mean rehearsed, I'm not only talking about the playing itself, but the kind of persona that you are as a musician seems to be something like really present and like conscious, like very conscious about what you do, and at the same time it's always surprising, like you play these interesting things that not necessarily one would come up with. I would come up with melodically or something like that. And then you also your sound is not just a jazz sound, it's also well, for lack of a better term, like a rock sound, but then
Yeah.
also psychedelic and some ambient things in there, and your rhythm guitar playing is like has some funk influences or has that feel of funk sometimes, and you know what I mean. So it seems like it's really like, and that's why it doesn't surprise me that you say that it would be great if the conservatories would kind of like teach music from many different perspectives, because that seems what you have been interested in your life. At least that's what it seems like to me.
No, absolutely. Like I remember when I was young and still in Vienna, and then you join some bands, and I joined one band where I was basically just playing funk guitar,
Yeah.
all night long.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I had many bands like that, and uh, so of course it's super interesting to learn a couple of hundred standards from the Great American Songbook in the real key, and do you know the verse and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, the bands I was playing in, or some of those bands needed that.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I don't hold any grudge against my teacher, and he actually had that. He covered some. He covered it in his curriculum. He was aware that this is an important part. But musically speaking, if the school is kind of like a straight ahead thing, like how many straight ahead places are there where you can actually make money? And we should think about that when we educate people, because we don't want to educate the future unemployed. That would be kind of counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you have to learn how to play funk guitar, or you have to whatever. There's a broad range, and so I was not just interested in it, I was also confronted with it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you do some studio work and they want you to do some things that like a typical jazz student would say, oh, that's beneath me. I no, you just have to do it because hey, you're getting paid, and then you find. I remember one of my first studio gigs in Vienna. They had me do like the typical campfire chords, acoustic guitar thing, and I kind of recorded it, and I thought I did it perfectly. And I said, well, it's a little bit sloppy here, it's a little sloppy there. Let's fix that, number one. And then they went, let's double it. And I thought, oh, God, what? I don't even know my strumming pattern or whatever. They were really
Yeah.
sweet with me, and they
Mm-hmm.
kind of carried me through the day.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think that that this kind of guitar playing had any value. I was more of a jazz snob back then.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a good lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And then the same thing when you hear some soulful finger pickers that play just that singer-songwriter finger style guitar, like the typical jazz student goes, oh, these are just campfire chords with something. But then, yeah, well, play it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in the real world, I learned to value all those different forms of expression quite a bit more. And obviously all the records that I was listening to. So all those influences are coming from somewhere. I'm a huge Prince fan. Prince was my first big concert. I was 14 or maybe I think 14. And Prince was playing in the Stadthalle, which is like the biggest venue in Vienna.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a ticket, but I went there and there was a guy walking around and said, okay, let's check the watches. In 15 minutes, we'll just all storm in. And I thought, okay, I'm going to wait it out and see if that happens. And it happened. And we stormed in and hundreds of people were just running in. The support act was already playing and I experienced Prince live. And I have to say, I started with the best show ever.
Yes.
It was a sign of the times tour. It was just great. And I think sometimes the jazz student kind of is also being taught that certain music does have less value. But then if I hear a Prince guitar solo, I go, well, maybe he's not as educated, but he for sure delivered his message really well. I totally adore his guitar playing. It's just great. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying. That's my point that I'm trying to get across. Kind of being a little bit more open and the same. But that goes for every musical style. You know, if you're in the rockabilly clique and only rockabilly is important and everything else is kind of dispensable to you, well, maybe you should open your eyes and your ears a little bit, and especially your ears. Metal, whatever it is.
Alex, I mean, this is so cool that you bring these examples, because I think for those people, it's not about the music, right? For them, it's about belonging to a scene or whatever. Like, and like, funnily enough, I have to say, like in my musical education, I was lucky to not really ever, you know, I have never been faced with snobs like that. I mean, I remember a few things where I played a song to my saxophone teacher. I had saxophone lessons of like only a few. And he said that drummer doesn't groove, or stuff like that, which was also stupid because it wasn't meant to be a swing anyway. So, but you know, like, I only experienced that in small doses, but yeah, in jazz, I mean, do you have any idea where that comes from? That this snobism, if that is a word, is.
I don't know if it's the same everywhere. So let me start with that. I can only talk about Vienna, and I feel, this is my analysis, I might be completely wrong. So if you're a Viennese jazz musician, you're doomed, because you are not playing with the A cats anyway. So you just try to get a little bit higher than everyone else, and then you just I don't know, have this all those anxieties or complexes that where you have to kind of look down on everyone else, because in reality you're so insecure with yourself and trying to establish yourself as something, knowing that you're still not an A player. And by A player, I mean those blue note cats over that they are talking about. I don't know how many Austrian jazz musicians have John Coltrane in their credits. No one, right? Because how many Austrians played with Miles? Well, Joe Zawinul did. Maybe somebody else. I don't know. And Zawinul went to the States. So I mean, he was originally from Austria, and he brought lots of Austrian heritage into his music. But still, he made his career here and not in Austria. And I don't want to insult any Austrian jazz musicians. I'm just saying it's a little bit difficult, making a name for yourself, and then but knowing that you will reach a ceiling, because that's it. So I remember at school they told us, in New York at a session you have to know so and so many standards, and I thought, I don't want to go to a jam session in New York to play standards. That was never my wish. Maybe that's your wish, and I appreciate that you want to teach that, but please declare yourself, say, this is my wish. But don't project that wish on everyone else.
Oh, was it easy for you to kind of find your own voice in that climate of teaching and education?
Well, that came by itself. I mean, it's step by step. First, I have to say I was the biggest Joe Pass fan when I was around 13, 14. I got a record and I thought, wow, that's great. So I had to check that out, and so I slowly grew into jazz music. But then I had a friend who was living across the street who always got money from his grandfather. And he invested that money in a record store. He bought albums like crazy. And he always called me, hey, I've got something new, check this out. So I just went across the street and he played me something that I didn't know. And I didn't have much money, so I couldn't afford going to a record store and then coming home with like dozens of albums. So that I got lucky in that sense. And for our listeners here, if anyone is even listening to this, Marcus and I grew up before YouTube, before the internet, even before a cell phone, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
So at different times. I mean, nowadays you can look everything up and then go, all you need is one name and type it into YouTube, and then the sidebar will give you so and so many references. Some of them maybe not so fitting, but would be relatively easy. For us, it was a little bit more difficult. We had to buy magazines, so we kind of or look at the albums, who's playing there and what else is this person doing. It was a little bit more difficult. Anyway, so I was listening to all the stuff that he bought, and there was always something that I really liked, and then you steal from that, or then you listen so much to it that you become familiar with it. What is that guy actually doing?
Mhm.
Not that I know what every guy is always doing, but some, and then you start transcribing or just learning it by ear, whatever. Yeah, and I think that's how I started. That's coming up with my own music. Of course, I was a huge Zappa fan, so there had to be some Zappa influence. I was a huge Holdsworth fan, so put these two together, and then, as I said, I liked Joe Pass, so basically chords. So then I liked Wayne Krantz, Mick Goodrick. The list is endless of those people, and then you just try to come up with something, and ultimately you can only write the songs that you can write. So that's how I did it, and that's how I guess everyone in a way does it. And then after a while, once you find something that kind of works for you, where you're kind of happy with the result, well, then you probably you go down that path a little bit more and more and more, because you feel comfortable with it, which doesn't mean that you can't change directions at any time, but that's, I think, how you kind of carve out your niche. And I think you probably did the very same thing by hey, I'm gravitating towards this, so let's try this out. What can I do here and there?
Yeah, for me, it was a completely different scene. Like for me, for example, jazz happened relatively late, like when I was 18 or 19, that I became aware of it. Also Frank Zappa's music, like late 80s, really pretty late to the party. But you know, like with the kind of voice that you have on the guitar, and I mean with that also the composition, so not just the technical playing, right, but the I assume, but I think I'm right, that there's quite a bit of that there's quite a bit of woodshedding in your life, a lot of practicing. Is that the case?
Yeah, I did practice. I'm still practicing. It's basically, but that's just a necessity. If your musical idea demands a little bit of practice, well, then you just practice. It's not that I'm sitting there and I want to write something really difficult to impress people. I'm too old for that. And I'm not that impressive anymore, because look at the youngsters, what they can do. They come out, I give them birth and can already do two-hand tapping as embryos now. That's impressive, right? So I'm an old fart already. So I'm aware that this is what I do is not really that impressive. But I just want to get my musical idea across. And sometimes actually it sounds more complicated. I always get that feedback when I hire a new drummer. I just played the Baked Potato with a drummer that I played before with him, but that was already 3 years ago. And I always get that bitching about how difficult my music is. And I always tell him, no, it's not that difficult. Just give it a second. Give it a second. Listen, once you know the trick or the code or whatever it is, it's actually much easier.
Yes.
And he had to agree. Or then we play a song that he just played basically by ear. And I go, well, no bitching here, right? And he goes, no, I'm okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just like the first impression is a little bit daunting, But
Mhm.
in reality, it's actually not that difficult. I
Mhm.
think there is way more difficult music out there than what I do.
Yeah, yeah. But you know that it's about this idiom that as an artist you have a chance to develop something that's your own idiom, and somehow that idiom, if it's something that comes from you sort of practicing and like repeating your ideas in order to bring your ideas to the place where you want them to be, then you are sort of like the expert and specialist for that way of thinking or that way uh, of practicing or whatever, and then it
Of
finds
course.
its way into the music, into the composition, and into your sound. And then at some point you get to the place where people go, "Ooh, wow, what is that? Like,
Yeah.
I've never heard anything like that," or "How did he do that?" And you know, like one thing that I learned, well, maybe only in the last 10 years or so, that it's much more about what you play than how you play. This is, I mean, it's obvious, right? But it comes from largely from playing the King Crimson pieces, like where, like the coolness of, you know, is the music, is not the people who play it.
Yeah.
But then you need the people who kind of like have an idea what makes those compositions cool. So, and then it's like the other way around. Then you need the musicians to make the music sound cool. So it's
Yeah.
and I still find that very fascinating. That it's like, but it's not about how you play. That's what I mean. Like, and it's not about how much how good your technique is or whatever. And
Oh,
like yours, yeah.
I certain things I do just because I don't know. I mean, certain things that I do, it's basically it's because I want to hear that as opposed to dot dot dot.
Yes. Mhm.
So if I hear certain things that I just really don't find cool, they will not find a way in my music. I will absolutely avoid that. Or
Mhm.
so to me, it's almost like finding your own voices. You have to learn a lot just to avoid it.
Yeah.
Just to under no circumstances will I play that voicing, even though I know it, even though I know it works for many people, but I cannot play that voicing, whatever that
Mhm.
voicing is, or a certain groove or a certain whatever. I mean, you can. It's more like a statistical game. Then you take so and so much input and say this is a big no, this is a small no. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I practiced only chromatic exercises for 15 years, because I never wanted to practice a diatonic scale. It
Yeah.
just I hated it, you know. I never wanted to play like that. And
The
but
interesting thing
that
is,
that has
sorry.
changed though. No, that has changed though. Yeah.
But the thing is, it took me such a long time uh, to figure out. I won't say how long, but basically, you know, when we are young, practicing equals playing scales, for instance. So
Mhm.
you're a youngster, you have no clue about anything. You sit there and you play a scale up and down. You don't even question, why am I doing this? What am I doing with this scale? I'm just basically practicing a lick, which happens to be an ascending and descending scale. And then
Mhm.
if you because I was teaching at GIT and I was teaching a lot, I'm still teaching a little bit here and there now, only privately and very
Mhm.
little. But in my life, I taught a lot, and basically everyone makes the same mistake. They practice a scale up and down, but then they can't do anything with that
Yeah.
scale. They always have to start at their reference point, which is like the lowest note of their fingering.
Mhm.
And then when you show them, look, you could use the same notes, but come up with melodies or with counter movements or this and that. You go, ah, interesting.
Mhm.
And then it kind of dawns on them, they have no control over that scale, which is interesting. So you were practicing that scale, and I did the same thing, practiced it up and down, not even questioning why am I doing this.
Yeah.
Well, one reason why I did it was because I had no other material to practice, because I had no clue about music. That has to develop over time. But it's still like this playing scales up and down. that I don't know. I will not experience it that will die out. I think that will always be something that people do. And the ones who develop enough will find out, great, now I can play a scale up and down. But I can't really make music with that. And the other ones will still stick to it and go, I can play the scale really fast.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
good if you
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah.
But then there's one Austrian expression or one Austrian saying, some people can can catch a fly with their ass. Yeah. That's also very interesting. And in fact, I would be willing to pay to see that guy catching that fly more than I would be willing to see somebody exercising scales on stage.
Yes.
Just saying. It's kind of important.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and it's the purpose, right? That sort of, maybe, as you say, for a young person, it's not the first thing on their mind, right?
Yeah, I mean, you first have to gather material. I remember I was reading so and so many people were practicing hours and hours and hours. So I started a practicing diary where I just first wanted to write down, okay, I also want to be as good as them. So I have to practice a lot, but I didn't know what to practice back then because I didn't have enough material to. So I sat there and made almost like an hourly schedule. Thought, I don't know what will I do in hour 6? How long can I do this? And I didn't stick to that practice schedule for very long. I think 2 days, and then I found out this is useless.
Did you have good teachers at the conservatory?
Yeah, here and there. There was always something good. But for the teacher at my conservatory, Klaus, he had more of a Montessori approach. I could do whatever I wanted, and he didn't. I think there were just 2 books that we had with etudes, which were actually good, that we had to do, which were in the curriculum, and I actually liked those etudes quite a bit. Other than that, he just let me do whatever I wanted, and we're still friends, and he always said, well, you were one of those who would do anyway. You don't even need me, so why should I push my style or whatever or ideas on you? You were already doing it anyway. So I was just basically, I don't know, he called himself maybe a coach at best. Yeah. And I think when I was young, I actually wasn't so happy about it because I thought he should have drilled me more or challenged me more. But then, getting older, I thought, no, actually, it's a very good approach because it didn't hurt. It didn't. Many people have their trauma, have like a real trauma with their teachers. I didn't have that, so that was good.
Great.
And sometimes it's so much. It has so much more value if you have to find the answer for yourself. That's also something that I kind of criticize nowadays, where everyone, it's pretty much for everything there's a tutorial on YouTube, how to play this, how to play that. Honestly, I remember when I had my first little discoveries, I was really proud of them and started to build my own way of thinking. Not that it was very original, because only later you find out, oh, many people think like that. But at least in that moment, you own it. At least you worked for it, and you didn't just qualify by being able to type the right search words into YouTube.
Yeah, like discovering something yourself is the biggest motivator there is. Like if you believe that you found it, right? And that's, as you say, that's the big problem with the search engines. It's horrible. Like, and I think I've said this before in some other interview like this or a conversation like this, when there was MySpace, and it had a search function, but it didn't really work very well. And that means that you were actually stumbling on stuff where you didn't even know where you got there. And somehow that still had a little bit of that vibe, as going into a record store and picking out an album by its cover a little bit,
Yeah.
And so once the search became so much better, it becomes uninteresting. because like anything is kind of like available. You don't really need to, you don't have that experience of discovery anymore, right? I totally understand that.
And
Yeah.
another thing with like that, with those algorithms is, let's say I'm interested in whatever, shred guitar, blues guitar, any genre, or who says guitar, music. Then they always recommend based on what you were listening, or like Amazon, based on your recent purchases, we think you might be interested. But that's not like humans always work, because maybe I already covered that. So
Yeah.
let's say everyone gave me shit for not owning one Eric Clapton record, which is a fact. I do not own one Eric Clapton record.
Well, why should you?
It's a question that remains to be answered. Anyway, so I don't have, let's say I buy one on Amazon, then they will start recommending more. But maybe maybe it was a gift for someone else. Maybe I'm not interested. So like that old record store idea where you just walk and you can browse and then you can even listen to it. And then maybe you even start a relationship with the salesperson who gets to know you and say, hey, we've got something really interesting. You should check that out. Or my friend across the street. And the same thing goes for teachers. So at GIT, for instance, sometimes I had to waste time with them and well, I think it was not a waste of time. It was just a little bit sad that I had to use the time like that. I asked them, okay, name me a couple of guitar players that you're listening to, because I was teaching guitar. So they named me 3 guys that all play fast. And I said, okay, anyone else? And they couldn't think of anyone. And I said, okay, check this out. Like if music is from here to the moon, you covered pretty much this, not less. I can't even show you this much. And then we spent our lessons writing down like the cornerstones that you kind of have to know. Not that you have to like it, but there was somebody called Wes Montgomery, and it's kind of cool to at least listen to one song or check out, oh, he was doing that thumb thing, if you want to look at it like this. And then I started later on, I said, okay, who are your 2 favorite piano players? Who are your 2 favorite bass players? Who are your blah, blah, blah. Many of them, of those students, couldn't name any names because they were only focused on guitar and only those 3 guys.
I had exactly the same experience when I was teaching at the Pop Academy. I gave a master class at the Pop Academy. First of all, there were only like 5 people there, which was good. Okay. But then I also asked them, like, which guitarist do you like? And really the first one they mentioned was Slash. And then, but that was it, right? That was that was about the depth of their interest, right? Anyway, I mean, let's not rant about this. Like with the internet search stuff, like which at the beginning it wasn't so bad because they didn't have implemented these algorithms yet that were trying to match, right? Yeah. And so it was still okay. But now it's getting really bizarre to me. Like there's a great Austrian company that makes plugins that I really like the plugins, and they put out a new plugin. I buy it because I know I'm gonna love it. I try it, I buy it, and then for like weeks, I get these ads. Buy that plugin. No, I've already bought it.
I have that same thing.
And that's sometimes I get so angry that I actually click on them because it's going to cost them money.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have the same experiences, because obviously first you do your research and you see, is there a deal out there, and lo and behold, there will be that bombardment with that product that's already in your room. I want to bring up something else, because music is great and everything. During that lockdown time, I really got into bicycling again. I love ping pong. I'm not great or anything, but I go to training now. I go twice a week at least. So because it was also on lockdown, you couldn't do that. And while you couldn't do that, I got back into bicycling. As a youngster, I was totally into bicycling. And it's like the typical story. Once you get your driver's license, you switch from the bike to the car,
Mhm.
and your excuse as a guitar player is, well, I had to bring my amp and blah blah blah. It's so more convenient. But so I got myself a good road bike, and I'm totally into it, and I'm totally enjoying it, and and I wish that I would have valued physical exercise during the last 20 years a little bit more.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was almost like the way I was thinking, oh, physical exercise, that's just for the idiots. I'm sitting there and practicing guitar. But it gives me so much, and it's almost a sort of riding your bike to me is very much like meditation, because at the point when I'm just trying to climb that hill, that steep hill, I don't worry about many other things. Actually, I don't worry about anything. I'm only doing this. So I'm
Yeah.
reaching the goal at being centered at exactly this. And that's such a great, it's really, that's really great. I just wanted to kind of
No,
bring in
I,
some new stuff.
are you obsessing about it also?
I wouldn't say obsessed. I'm very interested, and I
Yeah.
already pimped up my bike a little bit, losing weight here and there, of course,
Mhm. Mhm.
because that's possible. I have a trainer for home, because sometimes it's either too hot here. Like yesterday, it was just 42 degrees out there, so I don't want to climb a hill at that temperature. I wouldn't say obsessed. I'm highly interested.
Yeah.
Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
And I don't have any illusions that I will write the Tour de France or anything. So I'm completely aware that. But I'm
it's great.
into
It's
it.
great that you mention it. The Tour de France.
I just want to get a little bit away from music, because sometimes, because I was definitely I tend to obsess about music.
I see. Mhm.
Nothing else is more important, at least in my, not that I cannot talk to other people then about other things, but at least in my life, then everything is about music, and is this mix right, and is this, and blah blah blah, and it's just music. It's not brain surgery. It doesn't hurt anyone, or maybe it hurts, but you can turn it off, so who cares.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think like that bicycling is such a nice, maybe I brought it up because that's the point when I don't think about music, when I don't get any great ideas. All I'm doing is I'm bicycling. Other
Yeah.
people,
I'm very well. I have to say grateful that you bring this up, because I think it's for professional artists. I think it's a real problem for some of us. I'm not speaking for everybody, right? But at least for me, and you just confirmed also for you, that we sort of, the this little slice of the world that we deal with, right? Like everything is about that, and if you then sort of like wake up, right? Like what Corona did for me, you start noticing like, well, I've never even like turned my head left like for like 25 years, right? Like something like that. It's insane, and it made me feel really. I mean, I've like I've somewhat been aware of the fact that I'm such a nerd, right? But I didn't care. But now I feel like I want to break out of that, and I want to feel okay, as you say, like not thinking about music, right? And so and the bicycle thing I can absolutely understand, because I love riding my bicycle,
okay, so
and but I don't do it much at all these days, which is horrible, but it was like it was the main thing I did in my teens, right?
yeah,
It was just really my whole life. I went like 50 kilometers almost every day,
yeah, same
and
here.
yeah, and yeah, there's something really beautiful about the physical activity, right? Like as musicians, we do have physical activity, but it's very restricted to the hands, to the muscles. Here, even like standing upright and stuff like that. Yes, but it's different if you actually get moving, and if you go from one place to another, and that has always been. I remember something really bizarre when I was in Innsbruck, and I went to the gym for a couple of years, maybe 3-4 years. And it was so bizarre to be like, because I enjoyed actually being on the stationary bike riding, because that was the time when I was on the road so much. And it was bizarre, because that was like the first time in my life that I actually enjoyed riding without going anywhere.
Yeah.
So, but you have a stationary bike now also here there
I
in
have
your
a
room?
smart trainer where I can clip in my bike and
I see. Yeah.
and that's for either super cold days or super hot days or extremely windy days, because I have to admit, if it's like super windy, then it's just not as much fun. Or for the night.
Yeah.
If I don't get to ride during the day, I only ride during the day with my bike outside. So, but if I feel a little itch in the night, then I can still ride with one of those software programs.
When did you start riding the bike? Like right at the beginning of Corona, or?
No, it was a little bit later. It was, I think, maybe end of August or so, and then it's September. And my wife also got totally. Actually, she started it again, and then I got also re-interested, and then we went and got ourselves new bikes. Actually, we were out to get her a good bike. She had just a foldable bike, like a little mini bike, but she was riding more and more, and at a certain point, I kind of recommended maybe you should get like a good bike, because this is holding you back. And then in that store there was a perfect salesperson who also showed me some bikes, and I thought, you know what, fuck it, I only live once, I need that bike now. But seriously, I mean, I still am so happy about that. And I also want to we still have time? It doesn't really matter.
We have a lot of time. Yeah.
Okay. So music, being obsessed about music is one thing, but being like having a musical career is a little bit more. I should, the music part, the obsession about the music part, I'm actually okay with that. That would be totally fine. But then all that burden of now that you have nowadays of, do I appear enough in social media? Do I release enough videos? I barely release any videos, because I feel like I don't need to document everything that I'm doing. And many of my days are just not worth documenting. So then we have to, as you know, we have to do everything, because in our little world, the budget for each project is non-existent. So I have to do it myself. That's something where you can go really crazy. And then if you post something, of course you look if you get some likes, because well, you just did it. But I don't want to be that person. Honestly, in reality, I just want to do my music and to do whatever I can, and don't give too much about all the other shitty parts that you have to, as a nowadays artist, have to do. The whole self-promotion. Everyone wants, whatever you do, can you send those pics in high res? Can you do this? Can you cut that video? I need it in a different format. Things I have to learn. Yeah, and young people would listen to me now. We're going, oh, he's an old fart. Yeah, and then I would go, yes, you're right.
You know, I know a lot of young people who are very opposed to social media and the digital life, and I think it's,
that's great.
Yeah. It was a surprise to me as well. Like, even that some younger people that I've met are much less computer literate than I am, and I think that's great. I think that's great that it's possible to withdraw from that world. You know, I think it's a great thing. Yeah, but you know, I totally hear you. Like, the worst thing about the Corona times for me also are the fact that I didn't really have the chance anymore to do what I do in public, which is to play. So that means like making friends, making new friends. It's not so much like, say, not about the money, but just even the fact that I can kind of like build friendships. It was completely removed, and I'm able to build friendships because I play music. It's not because I'm a great talker or I want to talk a lot or whatever. It's just it's always been just kind of like I know we talked about this a long time ago when we met on the ship that I already knew like you're not interested in playing that game, social media. And I always said, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna play but I'm gonna kind of like create my own rules and try to see it sort of as an art project on the side, That sort of was always my approach. But then, in Corona times, just the grind that sort of happened to me because I needed to find a way to engage with those people. At least that's what I was thinking. That's what I still think. I kind of like, that part of community was only accessible to me via social media and not anymore via being in a place with people talking or drinking after a show, right? And that grind really has worn me out. It has worn me out completely.
I understand that, yeah.
Yeah, and so really, like at the moment, to be quite honest, I have given up. I don't have the energy to deal with that anymore. Yeah, like there's also a lot of negativity there. It's not just about the numbers per se, because numbers, when it comes to quality, and when I say quality, it could be good quality or bad quality, because you have like say one person who is an asshole, and it's sort of I'm so susceptible now that like it just hits me in the face if something like that happens, and it's really it has become clearer and clearer that this way of communicating, even though like with us it's different, but like in general it is very inhuman. It's not what we are as human beings.
No.
Somehow, right? And yeah, and in the if you have a music career and you're dependent on making money playing shows or having students or whatever, it's always been difficult. But with Corona, it was and is. But you guys have is California open again for business and stuff?
I played on Sunday at the Baked Potato. That was the last COVID show. Yeah. It was with limited seating, and now it's opening. It's completely opening up.
Yeah.
So let's see how that goes, because yesterday I was out running some errands, and people are still wearing masks, even though they don't have to. So I don't know. I think it will take a long time until everything is really normal. So I heard from people at the Baked Potato, audience. I heard, well, some of my friends are still not okay going to large gatherings, even though they are all vaccinated. So I don't know. To me, it left a big dent in my life as well, because being semi-isolated, kind of isolated. Yesterday, when we were doing our errands, seeing the human species up close and personal wasn't always just delightful. Let's put it like that. A little bit too close. It's not about social distancing. Just seeing certain things where I thought, okay, that's real life. Yeah. Oh, I didn't miss that. And so, yeah, it's opening. But I don't have anything booked for this year because nobody knew when it would open. And then I see there are people who already have tour dates for summer, fall. And I thought, wow, that was really courageous from whoever booked that, because you couldn't have known that it actually will open. Or there might be another surge. I mean, God forbid, but who knows? Yeah. If there is another surge, well, yeah, then...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with for the Stickman tours, I know that our booking agent, he had to postpone the tour several times and like book new dates just so that we would keep the option to have those dates in the future.
I know, but it's like
crazy
work. Yeah,
it's crazy. But there you go. That's like. The world of money, like you have to reserve your space to make money.
Yeah, I
right?
know.
And it's yeah. For me, I'm actually I'm gonna come to the US in August for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay, great.
Yes, but just for the summer camp that I'm doing with
Mhm.
Adrian, Tony, and Pat, and then in October there's supposedly a European tour for Stickman. So
Oh, okay, good.
yeah, I don't know. I
I'm
don't know
I'm
if it's
coming to Austria in the beginning of August to do my annual workshop in Schönbach in
yeah,
the Waldviertel. I've been
yeah,
doing that for 14 years.
yeah.
Last year it didn't happen, but apparently this year it's happening. And then after that, well, I have so many things to finish, which is good. And I always have some work here and there. So I'm not suffering or anything. I'm not complaining, not suffering. It's all good. But I remember during COVID, I played one little mini concert with Sumitra. We had a duo for a long time. So she asked me, would you play 2 songs as a duo? And I said, yeah, of course. And we had fun rehearsing, and we rehearsed, and it's great because that we knew when you rehearse, you always rehearse in private. But then we had that little mini concert over Zoom, and that was the weirdest thing. So we played the music, and then it's over, and basically you close your laptop, and that's the end of the gig. And I said, I will not do that ever again,
Yes.
because to me, that showed me how much I need to soak up the vibe of the room. I do want to stand at the bar. Maybe I at least want to see. I want to get like a reaction, like a little clap, clap, clap on Zoom from those little thumbnails. That doesn't. Not that I need to be celebrated. It's not meant like that. But I can't really soak anything in. And then you close the laptop, and basically you're can go back into your underwear again that you were wearing for I don't know, for the entire pandemic. So that was really counterproductive for me. That it almost hurt.
Oh yeah. Oh, what was
Whoa.
that?
At first I saw a flash. Hang on, let me see
Yeah,
if
yeah,
there are
yeah,
people dying out there.
yeah,
You
yeah,
never know.
yeah.
I don't see any dead bodies, but I saw a little flash first, and then I heard that shot. Well,
Wow.
I'm living in the ghetto, as you
Yeah,
know, because I'm a
you're in
fusion
LA.
musician, right? My income bracket qualifies for the ghetto, which is fun. So anyway, I totally enjoyed seeing people at the Potato Live, their reactions. I I was a little bit out of practice presenting myself, but they were also out of practice being audience. They were super sweet, but I could tell that for them it's also something a little bit unusual.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I had the same thing. Last year in October, I still played a small tour with Fat in Austria, a little bit Germany, and it was the same thing. Like okay, I was out of practice, but they were out of practice too. Because everyone didn't know what to do. What is it with the social distancing? And can I be there? Can I not be there? Mask on, mask off. Nobody knew, or nobody knew how to handle it properly.
Yeah, I
So
didn't
honest,
have.
to finish that thought, I just can't wait until that gets back to normal, and then all is good. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't have that experience yet of playing in public again. So it's gonna be interesting. But I hear you, because I had this daydream about like what will it be like if I had to talk to the audience now, right? So what would it feel like, and would it be? And the strange thought that came to me was that maybe it's gonna be a good thing. So maybe I'm gonna talk differently, or maybe I'll have a different kind of attitude, maybe a little more. Maybe I will value the situation more. At least that was my daydream. I don't know what it's going to be like in reality, but I tried the Zoom thing and stuff like that, and I tried several variations of it. And the funny thing was that like a pre-recorded live performance that was streamed, and I was there in the chat writing while people were watching. That felt actually quite good, and I had not expected that. Because that was almost like, people were seeing that and hearing that music for the first time. and they could interact with me. And for some reason that was okay.
Yeah.
And this, the Zoom thing I figured out worked best for me if I did public recording sessions where people could kind of listen and watch via Zoom, and that worked very well.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good. But like I did a couple just like full frontal streams via Zoom, and that really didn't feel so good. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I mean, if we had to, I'm sure we could adjust to that as well. But
come on.
no, I'm just saying, if that was the only option, like there is now a generation that say if you're 15 years old and you already have 1.5 years of pandemic, it's a much bigger part of your life. No, I don't want it like that, obviously. I also had the feeling that my immune system got worse and worse because I wasn't exposed to germs. Like normally when you go out, you just go out to the grocery store and you're exposed. So your immune system is intact because it has to kill it by itself. And then if you're masked and super careful, sometimes when I was out, I felt like, oh, am I sick now? And then probably paranoid or whatever. I don't know.
I had to laugh a little bit because I heard you weren't exposed to Germans, which is probably a good thing.
I call them lovingly germs. That's why they love me so much.
Hey, so when you started talking about the bicycle, the riding, and you said that you realized that you would have liked to have spent the last 20 years also doing some sort of sport, or even like riding, as you were saying. How long did it take you to kind of like get into it and feel comfortable? Was that easy, or was that actually
super easy?
It was super easy.
Super easy. I have a couple of routes here. I'm in the valley, and I'm always incorporating a climb. So I go up to Mulholland. So I already had kind of a benchmark, and of course, like the first couple of times, I had to take a little rest here. I couldn't do it in one, or I was completely losing my breath. But then you just keep doing it and keep doing it. And after a couple of times, yes, then I could go back and could do the entire route in one go and actually feel good. I was surprised. So obviously I smoke less nowadays.
But you still smoke?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but less. No, and even if it's exhausting, I still enjoy it because this is great. You can kind of feel yourself a little bit differently.
Yeah.
You go to your limits, and that's good. And then the next day when you kind of feel your legs, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah,
I can only recommend it to you. I mean, just
no. I have 2 bikes here.
Well, then there's no excuse.
No, there is no excuse. There isn't. And I'm sometimes wondering, like you just said, like you start feeling yourself more when you actually do physical activity. Is that like, what about music? Is music helping us also to feel ourselves better, or is that maybe the opposite?
Well, it's hard to. When you work on something at home, then I also get that feeling that I can really sometimes feel myself a little bit more, because it's not working and I have to work on it until the fingers do finally what they are supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's kind of comparable. But when I play, so the difficult parts are already stored and are just being recalled. Then to me, it's more about, with my band, kind of interaction. Then it's more about awareness. Like it's not so much like about. Then I can't compare it to sports, honestly.
Mhm.
Maybe for drummers it's different. I don't know.
Yeah, it's yeah. I think like anything that in like with at least with the way that I play, I think most of the sport on stage is the focus, right?
Yeah.
It's for me, it's the focus, and it really does feel like some sort of sport because it. I don't even know how to explain it, but it is as if there's like a meta kind of focus on the focus. I don't know what I'm saying here, but and and that's why I'm exhausted after show. It's not because I've moved my fingers or
No, no, no.
maybe the standing and actually like working the volume pedal a lot. That's something that I can sometimes feel physically.
Oh, absolutely. A friend of mine told me he went to a chiropractor or
It was Trey, right?
Trey. Yeah,
Yeah,
Trey said
yeah,
he
yeah,
went to
yeah.
the
He told
chiropractor.
me
He said,
too.
You're off. And then he
Yeah.
goes, yeah, because of the volume pedal. And I thought of myself, I've been standing like this for what, like 30 years now. So maybe I should see a chiropractor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the standing is one thing, and basically you're balancing constantly.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then sometimes, depending on where you play, it's not always the optimal posture because depending on the venue, it's not always like you want it. That there might be that one little thing, and you have to turn a little bit like that, but you stay in that position then for too long.
You know, like sometimes I have a little bit of carpet on the left side and nothing on the right foot, you know, and or
For
stuff like
instance,
that. It's
yeah,
like, yeah. And in South America, the stages they have this they how do you say
yeah,
decline and you
yeah.
know, oh
I know that's also difficult.
yes, yes.
So that's difficult, and yeah, the focus, like I'm always very concentrated.
Hmm.
So that definitely takes a lot of energy, but it's different. I mean, I'm obviously concentrated on my bike as well, but it's different. It's really a physical workout, and I think the concentration, at least in my riding, is yeah. I have to balance the bike, and I have to avoid major accidents.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's about it. Whereas in music, it's more like if I'm playing, I'm also basically the producer of the entire evening in a way.
Yes. Yeah.
So I take responsibility for almost everything
Yeah.
in a way. I mean, almost whatever I can do. So yeah, but that's different.
Yeah. So
Hard to say.
riding the bicycle has brought you relief, right? That's what it
Absolutely,
sounds
yeah,
like. Hmm.
yeah, absolutely, and also fitness, which makes everyday life easier again.
Yeah.
Getting up again and whatever you forgot. It's interesting. You actually feel it if you're stronger.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So and being out in the fresh air. I mean, as long as there's even fresh air. I know it's LA. It's not that fresh. But during COVID, there were times it only took a week, and we had the bluest sky. And I thought, okay, people, does anyone notice anything? It
Yeah.
was amazing.
I was in the Ruhrgebiet at the beginning of COVID, and what was so fascinating about it that the air cleared up in just maybe 5 days.
Yeah,
I think it was unbelievable. Like if you think about it, like we're doing so much damage there, right? But you don't do it for 5 days, and you're sort of like back to something more natural, right?
it
It
would
was
be so easy to save this planet, basically. Just
yeah,
get rid of those stupid humans, all of them,
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
a way.
Well, that's an interesting topic, you know. Um, and I don't have any answers for that. You know, what would be required? How would you change the human psyche to allow for a different way of interaction? Like as you know, because like as babies, as kids, we already learn uh, to be like the others, you know, and we copy parents and older people, and so that's why like the same patterns get passed on, and it's really difficult. You know, how could we break that pattern? I mean, I have some ideas now, but I don't want to say them because, like,
Of course, because you will lose all your audience.
Yeah, exactly. All my
all your fans will go. He's an asshole.
no, but it's yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
if for instance, what I really enjoyed during COVID is no one had shows.
yeah.
You know, you don't, you feel like, okay, now everything is equal. That whole greed thing or elbowing, that was gone because everything was locked down. There was nothing. That I really enjoyed. So I thought, okay, in that way, I'm not much different than name any superstar right now, because that superstar is also sitting at home and also doesn't have shows, right? So I feel like one of the biggest problems that needs to be addressed in mankind is just the greed, and if we all had enough to survive, if we don't, there used to be that study, would you choose either $250,000 a year if your neighbor also gets $250,000, or would you take $150,000 if your neighbor gets $100,000? And the big majority opted for the second one because it's important to have that little bit more than your neighbor, right? And yeah, that's mankind to me. Like how, like those.
Yeah. And you know, as you say, as a musician, as like a self-employed artist who is not doing any popular, doesn't have any popular music output, let's say, this kind of thought of like having more than somebody else, that comes last for me, actually.
Yeah.
Like you know, I just want to be able to just even, you know, feel comfortable with the base, having the basics. And, you know, like there's something interesting here. I don't know how it was for you guys over there, but basically COVID has also fucked up the Steuerberater, like the tax consultant.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like last year, well, like we changed the company that was doing taxes for us, right? And they simply didn't do anything. Like they even like they lost our documents and stuff.
Oh, nice.
It's ridiculous. So which means that now I haven't paid taxes for like 2.5 years. Right. So now when I look at my account, like there's more money on it than there was ever before because I haven't paid my taxes yet. This is insane. And now like my Sparkasse, you know, the bank, like takes a percentage because I have too much money on my account. Like this is how ridiculous it's getting here. Like you pay like these Strafzinsen for having too much money. Well, which is not a lot, but you know, they still say it's too much. Penalty for having too much money in your account. Ridiculous. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know if you know, but like my girlfriend and I, we've had a baby.
Yeah, I know.
You know.
So now you have real responsibilities.
I have real responsibility, so my life has changed and will change more over the next months and years. You know, like there's no doubt about that. And
how old is it? Is it a him? I believe it's a son.
No, it's
right?
a girl. It's a girl.
It's a girl. Okay, great.
Yeah, and she's 20 months old now, so pretty young. And I got to spend like most of the time with her. There was only one tour at the beginning of her life where I was away for 5 weeks. But since then, I've been, you know, like with her almost 24/7, and yeah, that's wonderful. You know, I mean, it's also been challenging, right? Like, but
hey,
you know, no, just the fact, you know, like I mean, not being with the baby, but normally there's sort of like a system in place where you have like your you know, like the grandparents or even just the neighbors, or you have a daycare place. But all of that, like there was a long period. Actually, here it started in early December and lasted till early June, actually, right? Where like daycare places weren't were only allowed to take kids if there was an emergency,
Mhm.
right? Or if you were working in a hospital or something like that, right? And it's just super fucked up that these young humans didn't really get to interact with other babies, and like you're only a baby once, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I really wonder, like, and here in the newspapers they say that the suicide rate for like teenagers went through the roof and stuff like that.
I heard that too.
It's crazy. I mean, yeah.
I know there were always those COVID talks where they kind of tried to also bring that up, so we can't have those lockdowns because of all these side effects.
Yeah.
And then I thought, yeah, but just from what I know from here, like the first lockdown, how many people didn't really stick to it and had their businesses going on in the back door? Again, for whatever reason that was, right?
Yeah.
I didn't really want to engage in those discussions too much, because I thought, no, it's very simple. It's a pandemic, and we could have killed it probably in a month if everyone really would have sat at home.
Yes.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
Yes.
And then they come, yeah, and the economy is suffering so much, blah blah blah. Whenever I hear that, I go, well, welcome to my world. Yeah, that's you're talking about my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the suicide, all admitted, horrible. Yeah, but it's only because we didn't really, as a society, really stick to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's basically, yeah, you get the result of humans failing at a very simple experiment.
Yeah, I didn't say that as an argument to not have
No,
lockdowns. Not at all. But yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I think it just shows where our humanity, society, and also our intellect is lacking. Right? It's, as you say, it could have been so simple. And this is actually something I spoke about with Trey at the very beginning of the pandemic. We talked and we said, okay, let's just shut everything down for 3 weeks and let's be over with it, and obviously that didn't happen.
Of course it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then when you hear that like certain companies made billions in the pandemic, it's like you hear that and you go, yeah, well, of course Amazon made more than usually because no one dares to go out. And then here in the States, that they wanted to join a union, but they totally disrupted that or suppressed that, so they didn't join the union. Makes me sick to my stomach, man. Those were the real workers who kept everything going.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is true, but like Amazon probably opened 40 logistics centers in Germany alone in the last year, right?
But to me, the really important question is, why was toilet paper the most important good that everyone needed? I thought that's interesting.
But in Germany, it was toilet paper, it was cheap rice and flour. Like, do people still make their own bread? Like, would they even know?
Some do. I sometimes make my own bread.
Yeah, I know. But in Germany, like, I don't know. Like, most people probably not.
But toilet paper, for instance, I mean, worst case scenario, you just wash yourself like you do in India. There is a way around it. It's not like the most important thing that we need to hoard.
Oh, no, I also didn't. I did not understand that at all. And I have to say, I still don't want to believe that I experienced that. That, there was no toilet paper.
But we did.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, man. You see, we didn't speak about music that much.
Yeah, and that's great.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Music should be listened to. I think talking about music is great and everything, but sometimes there are so many other things that are also interesting, or some things can't even be really talked about. Some things, sometimes I feel like it would be, instead of talking about music, let's just listen together to a nice piece of music. I can tell you one more thing.
Yeah.
Last year, there was a phase here in California where they allowed you can meet in the outside with social distancing. So we have friends who were really careful. So we asked them, would you be interested in doing that? Yeah. So they brought their own food, and we had our food, and then they came to our backyard. And I said, one of my long dreams, or something that I did as a youngster, is we met and everyone brought a piece of music, and I ordered 15 minutes of music, like a mini playlist, if you want. And we actually did it. Because how much can you talk about, hey, how is it going? Are you really doing well? Yeah, I'm doing so well. I just came off a tour. I'm going to the next tour. And I got 300 endorsements. And man, you know, that LA thing. Not that these friends are like that, not at all. But so we did that, and 1 hour, because we were 4 people, was dedicated to listening to music. I highly recommend that, because you yourself have to think about, okay, what do I really want to share? I didn't pick my own music. I thought that would have been a little bit douchey. So and it was really, really interesting, and it was a nice activity together, listening as an activity, and then maybe even talking about, hey, I recognize this, or is this actually this? But it's interesting.
A little bit like in the old days, right?
Yeah, and I wanted to bring that back.
Yes.
And I think I will make an effort to do, and everyone, will make an effort to bring that back, at least here in my little circle. And everyone who I talked to about this idea said, yeah, it would be great, it would be great. But it always takes that little extra push to really make people stick to it.
Yeah.
Those people say that would be great, and then usually once, oh, I didn't think about it.
You know, the problem is, like, I on the last tour I did, we did something similar where there was like a Spotify playlist, and the phone was traveling around, you know, on the tour bus, and you were supposed to put a track in the playlist.
Oh, right? That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, but not so great, because as you were putting in your song, your piece or your choice, some other music was already playing. So you were already in the mindset of, okay, my song is going to come after that, or the song that
you think like a DJ.
Yeah, and that just didn't work for me. Didn't work for me so well. So, but if you have, like, you tell people, okay, bring your 15-minute playlist, and you don't know what the other person has prepared, then that's perfect. I would love to do that. You know, if I get to visit you someday, we should do that.
Are you playing on the ship next year?
Yes, we're going to meet there.
Me too. So
if
we'll do
if it's going to happen.
I think it will be happening.
Yeah.
You don't think so?
What do I know?
Exactly. Well, let's see.
Yeah.
Either we see each other before then, or at the ship.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying not to be hopeful, and I would even say, like, I'm not at this point, I'm not even hoping anymore, in the sense that I'm looking forward. I don't allow myself the what I don't know what the word here is, but I don't allow myself the joy of thinking that it may happen.
Okay, my young friend.
Can you help me?
Here is a little spark of positivity.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it will happen.
Okay, great. Yeah. And so you're going to be there with Fat?
With Fat, yeah. We'll bring the Austrians
Wonderful.
into the Caribbean.
Wonderful. Yeah, I can't wait to meet those guys again.
If
And
they
you.
behave well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have to run now.
Yeah, me too. And I have to write now. My bike.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Keep me updated. Yeah.
Yes, I will.
And edit that shit. Edit. No, don't edit anything.
No,
Stupid.
nothing's gonna get edited. I'm too
So
lazy.
whoever
I'm too lazy to do that.
exactly, whoever was listening to all that rambling, thank you for listening.
Yes.
Don't blame it on us. You could have left this a long time ago.
Yes. Thank you, Alex.
Let's talk soon.
Yeah, bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.